My beloved child, pause here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was not meant to pass you by unnoticed. Something has been stirring quietly around you, hidden beneath ordinary conversations, unanswered messages, small pauses, and questions that seem too casual to matter. But heaven has seen what you could not see. A close friend has been wondering something about you, something deeply personal, and the reason behind their curiosity is far more emotional than you might imagine. Do not rush past this moment. There is a truth unfolding beneath the surface, and before this message ends, you will understand why someone close to you has been trying to figure out exactly how long you have been without the one thing your heart has secretly needed most. You may think this is about a relationship, but stay with me, because it goes deeper than that. It is about how long you have been without feeling truly chosen, without feeling completely understood, without having someone look at you and recognize what you carry behind your smile. There have been seasons when people stood near you but did not truly stand with you. There were conversations in which you spoke, yet somehow your deepest emotions remained unheard. There were moments when you gave comfort to everyone around you while quietly wondering who would notice that you needed comfort too. And now someone close to you has begun noticing the spaces you never talked about. They have started connecting details you thought no one remembered, and what they are discovering is making them see you differently. This friend did not wake up one morning and suddenly become curious. Something triggered it. A small moment. A sentence. A reaction from you that lasted only a few seconds. You may not even remember it clearly, but they do. Perhaps someone mentioned love, companionship, loyalty, or the feeling of finally having someone dependable, and for one brief instant your expression changed. You recovered quickly. You always do. You smiled, redirected the conversation, or acted like the subject meant nothing. But that tiny change in your face stayed with them. They saw something there that words could not hide. It was not desperation. It was not sadness alone. It was the quiet exhaustion of someone who has learned to live without asking for what they truly desire. And this is where the mystery begins, because that friend has been wondering, how long has it really been? How long have you carried yourself without leaning on someone? How long have you been the strong one? How long have you been telling yourself that you are fine because you did not want anyone to see what still feels unfinished inside you? The question has followed them. It came back later when they were alone. It appeared again when they remembered certain things you said months ago. And now their curiosity is turning into something much deeper. They are not merely trying to know your history. They are beginning to understand your heart. There is something powerful about being seen after a long season of hiding in plain sight. You never necessarily meant to hide. Life simply taught you that some feelings were easier to carry quietly. You learned not to explain every disappointment. You learned not to chase people for understanding. You learned that if someone wanted to know you, they would have to pay attention to more than your words. And now, finally, someone has begun paying attention. That is why this moment matters. The question they are asking is not really about time. It is about the cost of that time. They want to know how many evenings you spent convincing yourself that peace was better than uncertainty. They want to know how many times you walked away from connections that felt one-sided. They want to know when you stopped expecting people to show up for you. They wonder whether your independence was always natural, or whether it was built from necessity. And the more they think about it, the more one realization begins to disturb them. Perhaps they have been standing close to you without fully understanding what you survived emotionally. You have carried yourself with more grace than most people realize. There were chapters where you had to become your own reassurance. You had to tell yourself that tomorrow could be different even when nothing around you suggested change. You had to learn the difference between loneliness and solitude. You had to understand that being alone did not mean being forgotten. But somewhere along the way, the silence became familiar. The absence became normal. And what once felt temporary slowly became something you stopped counting. That is what your close friend is trying to understand now. They are trying to count something you stopped counting long ago. And there is another layer to this that you need to hear. Their question may sound simple if it ever reaches you. They may ask indirectly. They may joke about it. They may bring it up through another person or carefully circle around the subject, pretending they are only curious. But beneath that question is another one they may not yet have the courage to say aloud. How has someone like you gone so long without receiving the kind of love, attention, companionship, or emotional safety you naturally give to others? That thought has unsettled them. Because they know more about you than you think. They remember the way you show up for people. They remember how quickly you notice when someone else is uncomfortable. They have watched you encourage people when you were quietly carrying your own battles. They have seen you forgive things you could have held against others. They have noticed how rarely you make your pain the center of a room. And suddenly they are looking back at all of those moments and asking themselves a difficult question: who has been doing that for you? The answer they keep arriving at is not the one they expected. You have been doing it for yourself. That realization has changed something inside them. There are people who admire strength from a distance, but when they finally understand where that strength came from, admiration becomes emotion. That is what is happening here. Your friend once saw you as capable, composed, resilient. But now they are beginning to see the hidden history behind those qualities. They are realizing your strength may have been born from nights when no one checked on you, decisions you had to make without reassurance, and moments where you needed someone but chose not to ask because you did not want to feel like a burden. And the more they understand, the more protective they are becoming of something they once overlooked. Your heart. This is not about pity. You do not need anyone to feel sorry for you. You never have. What is unfolding is recognition. Someone is beginning to recognize the depth behind you. They are starting to see that you are not difficult to love, you have simply become careful with access to your inner world. They are realizing you do not ask for impossible things. You ask for consistency, honesty, presence, a feeling that someone means what they say. And perhaps, in the past, too many people wanted the warmth of your presence without taking responsibility for protecting your peace. Your friend is beginning to understand that too. There was a recent moment when they heard someone describe you in a way that did not sit right with them. Perhaps the person said you were distant, too independent, too private, or difficult to read. Your friend almost agreed at first. Almost. But something stopped them. They remembered conversations with you. They remembered the small glimpses of softness you allowed them to see. And suddenly they realized that you were never emotionally distant. You were emotionally selective. That distinction matters. You did not close your heart because you had nothing to give. You became careful because you had given deeply before. You understood how much it costs to offer someone genuine access to you. You learned that not everyone who asks questions deserves the answers. Not everyone who comes close knows how to stay. Not everyone who admires your light understands the responsibility of standing beside it when life becomes complicated. And now your friend wants answers, but not because they want gossip. The question has become personal for them. How long have you really been carrying this part of your life alone? They may already be trying to work it out through little pieces of information. They are remembering dates, conversations, things you mentioned casually. They may have asked another friend an innocent question. They may have scrolled backward through old messages, looking for a clue about when your life changed. They may even have thought they knew the answer, only to realize the silence has lasted far longer than they imagined. And when that realization lands fully, it creates another question. Why? Why has someone with your capacity for love been without the kind of connection that matches it? Why have people noticed your appearance, your personality, your energy, your loyalty, yet somehow failed to hold the deeper parts of you with care? Why did certain people come close only to become inconsistent? Why did some promise understanding and then disappear when emotional honesty was required? Your friend cannot answer those questions yet. But heaven can show you something about what those years were doing. You were not simply waiting. You were becoming impossible to impress with emptiness. There was a time when words could move you more easily. You wanted to believe promises because your heart naturally searches for sincerity. But experience sharpened your discernment. You began watching patterns instead of speeches. You stopped being convinced by temporary attention. You learned that excitement and devotion are not the same thing. Someone can make your heart race and still have no intention of protecting it. Someone can speak beautifully and still disappear when consistency is needed. So the seasons without certain things were not meaningless. They changed what you are willing to accept. And now your friend is seeing the result. You are calmer, more observant, less easily persuaded. You may still love deeply, but you no longer confuse emotional intensity with emotional safety. You no longer want someone merely because they want you. You need to feel that their presence makes your life more honest, peaceful, and secure. And this is what your friend did not fully understand before. They thought you were simply waiting for the right person. Now they are beginning to wonder whether you have been waiting for the right feeling. The feeling of not having to question everything. The feeling of being able to rest emotionally. The feeling of being chosen clearly instead of almost. The feeling of knowing that when someone says, "I am here," they are not preparing an exit behind the scenes. That is what you have been without. And someone close to you is finally noticing. There is another reason this revelation is happening now. Your energy has shifted lately. You may not feel dramatic change inside yourself, but something about you has become less available to confusion. Things you once tolerated now exhaust you. Conversations that once kept you thinking for hours now seem easier to release. You are not trying to prove your value as much. You are not asking why certain people failed to recognize what you offered. Something inside you has begun saying, quietly but firmly, if they could not see it, they were not meant to hold it. Your friend has noticed this shift. And it has made them curious. Because when someone becomes more peaceful, people around them often start wondering what changed. But the truth is, sometimes peace does not come because something was added. Sometimes it comes because you finally stopped waiting for what repeatedly disappointed you. Your close friend can sense that you have crossed an invisible line. You are not standing where you used to stand emotionally. You are not waiting at old doors. You are not sending your heart into places that return uncertainty. And they are trying to determine exactly when that happened. There was likely a specific chapter that changed everything for you. A final disappointment. A broken expectation. A moment when you realized you could no longer keep offering understanding to people who offered you confusion in return. It may not have looked dramatic from the outside. Maybe you did not cry in front of anyone. Maybe you simply became quiet. Maybe you stopped reaching out. Maybe you went to sleep one night feeling exhausted and woke up the next morning strangely calm. That calm was not indifference. It was acceptance. And acceptance changed you. Your friend may never know the exact moment unless you tell them, but they can see the evidence now. You do not react the way you once did. You do not chase explanations. You do not argue for your place in someone's life. You are becoming increasingly comfortable with letting people reveal their priorities without correcting them. That is powerful. But here is the part that has begun to surprise them most. They expected someone who had gone so long without deep emotional companionship to become bitter. You did not. You became deeper. You still believe in meaningful connection. You still notice kindness. You still feel touched by sincerity. You still have the ability to imagine love without mocking yourself for wanting it. You may be cautious, but you have not become cold. And that is what makes your story different. Your heart survived without turning cruel. Your friend sees that now. And it is doing something to them emotionally. They are beginning to wonder what would happen if someone finally gave you the kind of consistency you have given everyone else. They wonder how you would change if you no longer had to carry every emotional responsibility alone. They wonder what your smile would look like if it came from feeling safe instead of simply being strong. And there is a chance, my child, that this question is becoming less theoretical for them. Because sometimes people begin asking about the emptiness in your life when they are secretly wondering whether they could be part of filling it. Do not jump ahead. There is more to reveal before you decide what this means. Not every close friend who becomes curious is secretly in love. Sometimes they are being prepared to speak something that will redirect you toward another connection. Sometimes they have witnessed something about someone else's feelings and are trying to understand your heart before revealing what they know. Sometimes they are standing at the edge of a conversation that could change the way you see an entire situation. And your friend has information you do not have yet. Something has been said about you. Not something cruel. Not something frightening. Something unexpected. Someone recently asked them about you in a way that made them pay attention. At first, the conversation seemed ordinary. Your name came up naturally. A few harmless questions were exchanged. But then the tone changed. The person became more specific. They wanted to know whether you were seeing someone, whether anyone had your heart, whether you had moved on from something in your past, whether there was room in your life for something new. Your friend did not answer immediately. Because suddenly they realized they did not know. That is when their curiosity began. They thought they knew you well, yet they could not answer the simplest question about your emotional life. And that bothered them. Not because they felt entitled to know everything, but because they suddenly understood how carefully you have guarded this part of yourself. Later, they began replaying the conversation. Why had that person been asking? Why had they wanted to know now? Why did their voice sound different when your name came up? Your friend saw something in that interaction that they have not told you yet. Something that made them wonder whether your season of being without certain things is closer to ending than you realize. You may have felt recently that something around your relationships is shifting even though you cannot identify anything concrete. Perhaps you have thought about someone unexpectedly. Perhaps old memories have resurfaced without pulling you backward. Perhaps you have felt a strange readiness, as though your heart is opening a window after keeping it closed for a long time. That readiness is important. Because preparation often feels like restlessness before it becomes clarity. You are not being asked to chase anyone. You are not being told to force a connection. The message here is simply this: what has been quiet around you is beginning to move. And your close friend may be standing right in the middle of that movement. They know something. They are deciding whether to tell you. They want to understand where you are emotionally before they place new information into your hands. That is why they have been wondering how long you have been without someone. How long since you trusted deeply? How long since you allowed anyone to become important enough that their presence changed your days? How long since you felt anticipation rather than caution? They are measuring the tenderness of the ground before they speak. Because what they heard could awaken something you thought you had already put away. You may wonder whether that is good. It depends on what you have learned. If you were still the person you once were, perhaps this new information would pull you into fantasy too quickly. Perhaps you would build an entire future around a few words. But you have changed. You know now that curiosity is not commitment. Interest is not devotion. Possibility is not a promise. That wisdom will protect you. Yet wisdom does not require you to close every door. That is the balance heaven has been teaching you. Remain open without abandoning discernment. Remain hopeful without ignoring reality. Remain loving without losing yourself. Your friend senses that you are capable of this now, and that may be why they are finally considering telling you what was said. There is something almost sacred about the moment before hidden information becomes known. Your life can look completely ordinary, and yet one conversation can suddenly rearrange how you understand the past. Someone says a sentence, and you realize certain silences meant more than you thought. Someone reveals a detail, and you see that a person you assumed had forgotten you was paying attention from a distance. Your friend is holding one of those details. But they are hesitating. Not because it is bad. Because they are unsure what it will awaken in you. They know you have worked hard to become peaceful. They do not want to disturb that peace with empty hope. So they are checking. They want to know if you are truly ready. And perhaps that is the question beneath all their questions. Not, how long have you been without someone? But, are you ready to let someone matter again? That is much harder to answer. Because being alone is not always the frightening part. Sometimes the frightening part is finally having something worth losing. You have learned how to live with absence. You know how to structure your days. You know how to comfort yourself. You know how to enjoy your own space. There is a strange safety in not expecting too much from anyone. But connection asks for vulnerability. It asks you to allow someone into places that have been under your protection for a long time. And your heart knows the difference. That is why even good opportunities can create hesitation. If something begins to change, you may feel excitement and caution at the same time. Do not mistake caution for a sign that you should run. Sometimes caution simply means you understand the value of what you are opening. Your close friend may be the first person to notice that you are standing at this threshold. They see the way you speak about the future differently now. They hear less disappointment in your voice. They see more peace in your choices. And perhaps that is why someone else felt brave enough to ask about you. Your energy is no longer saying, "Convince me I am worthy." It is saying, "Show me you are capable of meeting me where I am." That changes who feels comfortable approaching you. The careless may pull away. The sincere will become more intentional. And someone has begun becoming intentional. Your friend noticed. They saw the way this person asked questions slowly, almost carefully, as though trying not to reveal too much. They saw how they looked away when your name was mentioned. They noticed that the question about your relationship status was not random. And your friend has been thinking about it ever since. They have even considered whether they should encourage this person or tell them to speak to you directly. But there is one complication. Something about your past came up in that conversation. Not the whole story. Just enough to make the person asking about you pause. Your friend is now wondering whether they should explain what you went through or protect your privacy completely. They know you would not want your pain turned into a story for someone else's curiosity. So they said very little. But what they did say changed the atmosphere. They told this person that you have been on your own emotionally for longer than most people realize. The response surprised them. The person became quiet. Not uncomfortable. Moved. As though the information confirmed something they had already sensed about you. And then they asked one final question. A question your friend has not been able to forget. They asked, very softly, "Do you think they would ever let someone close again?" Your friend did not know how to answer. But heaven has been watching your heart. You may not know the answer either. Yet something inside you is beginning to. You are no longer looking for someone to rescue you from loneliness. You are looking for someone whose presence does not require you to abandon the peace you built while alone. That is different. And somewhere nearby, someone may finally be capable of understanding that difference. Your friend is about to learn more. There is another conversation coming, and this time the questions may become more direct. The person who asked about you has not forgotten what they heard. In fact, their interest has deepened. They have begun asking themselves whether the timing matters, whether they should approach you, whether you would welcome honesty or retreat from it. Your friend may soon become the bridge between what you do not know and what someone else is trying to say. But before that happens, something must be revealed. There is a reason this person wanted to know exactly how long you have been without deep connection. It was not because they were measuring your loneliness. It was because they were measuring how long they may have misunderstood the opportunity that was standing in front of them. And when your friend finally discovered who had been asking these questions about you, they froze for a moment, because it was not the person they expected at all. What they learned next made them realize this story did not begin recently. It began much earlier. And there is one hidden moment from your past that connects everything together, a moment you may have completely forgotten, but someone else never did. Your close friend knows about it now. And they are trying to decide how to tell you that the person asking how long you have been without love may have been carrying feelings for you for far longer than anyone realized.